In this episode of 80 Day Ride, we are going to the airport to pick up 2024 World Series of Poker Main Event champion, Jonathan Tamayo. I'm super excited to get to know this guy. He's flying in from Houston for a tournament in town. And yes, I'm going to ask him about the controversy, the laptop, all that stuff. Let's go get him. Okay, Jonathan, it is a pleasure to have you on 80 Day Ride. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
I want to talk about like your childhood and your parents. You grew up outside of Houston?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Houston is still your home today. When you decided to be a professional poker player, I mean, you went to Cornell, right? You go to Cornell, I imagine your parents weren't like, cool, we're sending him to Cornell so he can be a professional poker player, okay? But that's the path you took. What was their reaction to that?
It was kind of, but the way I took it, because kind of by accident. So I graduated in 2008 from college. There were no real jobs out there. All the good paying jobs didn't exist. All the good job offers that were being given to some people in my class were getting rescinded because they went through layoffs. There's just, nobody had any money, nobody had any capital. If you had cash back then, cash was king. You bought everything up at a discount. Any equities, any stocks, anything like that, everything was depressed because that's the whole. We're in the Bear Stearns thing where it crashed.
Right,
and then,
I forgot. Yeah.
And then we had, and then after that, and then like right after that, we had a huge like 30-40% drop or whatever it was. Like I was helping my mom make mortgage payments with the poker money, and it just kind of happened. That's like, all right, I was gonna go do that, and then when it settled, like. Go on with it. And then,
do you think, okay, listen, when the economy recovers, I'll stop this poker thing.
And that's what I thought, because, I just thought, like, I can't get to the mountain. I can't. Am I really that good? No. It's so hard to be really good at poker. And I just, I'm just watching all the best players. Like, I don't know if I could do it. So I said, all right, at some point, when this all closes down, we'll go back to it. And then I kind of never went back to it.
What was it, by the way? Well, if you weren't a poker player, what would it have been?
Probably something in, like, operations. So, like or a finance type thing, something analytical. I know in college it wouldn't have been with my hotel degree and hotel and restaurant management degree. It wouldn't have been running a restaurant because I knew the profit and loss and I knew the income. I knew how much in 2008 a Hilton, an average GM at like Hilton made because I saw all the, they did a survey.
Right.
And it was like 85,000, and then I realized the scope of the job of like a hotel, of being a GM. Is you're pretty much 24-hour on call. You're on vacation, but not on vacation. I said 85,000 is not enough for.
If I'm going to be on call 24/7, I'm a doctor.
Yeah, 85,000 for the scope of what that was didn't sound appealing, but something in the finance was, So I would have done something that, however I was going to do it. Then I had a good 08 summer. And I had a good 09, I said, and then I just started running with it at that point.
So I'm saying, so your parents were, I guess, out of necessity, and then your parents were supportive.
My mom was very risk adverse. She was like, what are you doing? And my dad's just like, I don't care. As long as you know what you're doing, go do it. So I guess my mom kind of went along with that. And then, the further you get along, then you just kind of get used to it, just MO. It's like, all right, this is the routine. This is life. This is what we're going to do. And then it's weird because the further along you get detached from graduating college, the harder it is to get indoor, because now that I know what I know, it's a lot of who you know and who you're around to get into the door rather than what you are sometimes.
Yeah.
It's who you know to be able to talk to the person, and then if you have the skills, then you get it, kind of a way. It's just kind of unfair how life works that way, but it is what it is.
I want to talk about, obviously, the World Series of Poker Main Event, not this year, but I want to talk about 2009 and 2015, 2-year keeper runs. 2009, I want to say you finished in 21st?
Yes.
2015, you finished top 100, like 75th?
It was like 78th or something like that, yeah.
What did those runs teach you?
The 2009 run, I kind of lost my mind at some point, like day 7, just being tired, being hungry. And, basically, like, that run taught me, it's like, if you want to eat, if you need to take something, you know, do what you need to do at that point, because the equity is too high. You know, you making a mistake because you're tired does happen, but like do everything in your power to make sure it doesn't happen, kind of thing.
What do you mean to take something?
Oh, food, you know, maybe sugar, caffeine, whatever you like.
Whatever you need.
I'm not an energy drink guy,
Right.
but you know, I probably could have used a Sprite or something, you know, or a granola bar or whatever. Like, you know, also like on the dinner breaks, not stuffing your face is the one time to eat a meal. Like you are allowed to eat a little bit every break. If dinner you're not that hungry, just don't eat a lot. That food coma gets you. And I said, and in the middle, on the dinner break, I said yes to too many media interviews. I said, okay, I'm allowed to say no and have reasons, and it's okay. You know,
I mean, clearly it didn't affect you too much. I mean, 21st, you're basically a flip or two away from making the final table.
Yeah, but I also torched about 6 figures on fire with an ace king high call to Billy Cobb, and that's where it got me. And being afraid to take some of the spots, being risk adverse, hugely risk adverse in a lot of spots when I should have been opening way more. I should have been 3-betting way more, because I had a table where a lot of people were afraid to put chips in the pot. But at the time, I didn't really play no limit-holdem. I was a limit-holdem guy.
Were you?
So I was making it up as I went. We didn't have ways with antes in the middle, you know, how the stuff changed. The people that knew didn't really tell anybody, and the people that didn't know, it was a little bit of freestyle. To like at the beginning of the main, I didn't know how to play 3-bet pots 200 bigs deep. I didn't know how to play 4-bet pots 200 bigs deep, or you know, play 3 streets 200 bigs deep. When oh my gosh, I have to pick sizings too. So just to keep the pots as small as possible to get to a shallow part of the tournament, I just told myself to not have a 3-bet range.
So were you at this point? Were you just a limit hold'em grinder?
Yeah, and I was just like shunning off the no limit hold'em part, because that's all I really did was play tournaments and play limit hold'em cash, because I played a Turning Stone in college, and the games that ran a lot were limit hold'em, playing 30, 60, 50, 100, 100, 200. Which, you know, if you ever see a 100, 200 limit game now, good luck. You know, in anywhere maybe it's not the West Coast.
Right.
You know, you'll never see it at Borgata. Now you'll see it, and I haven't seen it. You know, the East Coast doesn't really play it down in Florida. You have Borgata, you have Turning Stone, you have the Northeast, but
right. It was a different world back then.
Now we're going through kind of poker deflation with cash games and tournaments in general, or stagnation, deflation, depending where you are. For whatever, you know, we have inflation of money, and then, you know, now you can't find a 15-30 game, a 15-30 limit game, and even NL games, like you can't find a 25-50 public game anywhere now. It's like 5-10.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can get into a whole other, you know, tangent and go off into, you know, I don't even know what down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I don't know where we went with this.
Where people getting money? No, that's what we do here on 88 Ride, so I love it. So 2009, you're playing, you're making day 7. You had a deep run at the World Series of Poker before. Mm-hmm. You finished in second the year before that, or 2 years before?
I had second in a 1500.
Second in 1500. So you had made a deep run already. You know, but I mean, the main event is just its own animal, unique unto itself. I mean, there's no tournament like it. And you're going into day 7, you're exhausted. Did you allow yourself at that point to kind of start to dream about final table? Start to dream about, wow, I could win this?
I think I did. It's so hard to try to think back 15 years ago, but I think so, because I had friends texting and calling, oh my gosh, you might win the lane. Oh my gosh, you know, look at you doing the thing on TV. And then, you know, I didn't know any better, so it probably kind of gets to you, to where now, like, I'm old and withered now in circles. I'm a dinosaur now. Like, I'm telling people, you know, back in my day online we did this. So
but 2009 is still a long time ago. I've been covering the World Series of Poker as a commentator for well over a decade now, and 2009 even predates when I started doing it. I think 2009 was the first year that I covered the World Series of Poker, and I did it for Europe only. I was actually just playing it at that point in my life.
I think I remember you doing live at the bike way back in 07.
Way back.
And I don't know what happened after that. You just kind of lose track. Like, oh, where did
I
everybody
actually
go?
moved to 2009. I was living in London.
Oh,
I was living in London. I'd come back for the summer to play the World Series of Poker a little bit, and the games were great. And we just played tournaments and stuff, and it's pretty crazy. Okay, so let's fast forward 2015. You make another deep run. That's the year your good friend Joe McKeon ended up winning it, which is pretty crazy. And there, I want to say you got eliminated day 6.
it was either late day 5 or early day 6.
Okay.
I think it was early day 6.
And how did you feel during that run? Were there some takeaways from that?
That run I felt like I maxed out pretty much what I could do. I had a decent stack on day 5, but then nothing happened, and you just kind of slowly blind down. You lose small pots. They all add up, and next thing you know, you're really short on 6, and then you have like 12, 13 bigs, and then you don't have a choice.
You're looking, you go, wait, I had 100 bigs, what happened?
Yeah, like my bust out was getting in 12 bigs over under the gun open with 9s, and the guy had jacks, and off you go. What are you gonna do? So as far as mistakes, I don't remember any in 15. It's just it didn't work out in 15.
Is that more frustrating? I mean, when you say 2009, you torched a bunch of chips with Ace King, where there's like a memorable hand that you kind of think about, as opposed to just being like, I don't know, I had 80 bigs, I lost a few small pots. Before I knew it, the blinds go up a couple of times, and I look down, and I got 16 bigs.
15, I didn't feel, it was more disappointing in 09 because that stuff was under my control, a lot of it. 15, I controlled what I could, and it just didn't happen. And when I felt up, I said, 78. It's like, it felt like I ran deeper than I should have.
Okay.
It was, like, I don't really remember
You're
any memorable hands.
You're an overachieving football team.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he's like, all right, great. It's like, all right, 2 top 100 runs. I said, that's probably my allotment for life. 1 is good enough for life. 2 is over your allotment for life. And then somehow now I got a 3rd, and I can't, in what world?
So let's fast forward, 2024. As you said, you're a grizzled old vet now.
Yes.
Okay, you've been in the game for a while. You've seen your good friend win a championship. You've made a couple of deep runs. Obviously you're very comfortable. But at the same time, you're also a realist. You go into a tournament with 10,112 players, you being one of those 10,112. And I mean, what's the expectation in that?
At this point, like before this, I was like, at this point in life, I said, if I never go deep in the main again, it's okay, but if I've had my allotment, a 21st and 2 top 100s, like most people don't even get 1.
Right. And you've made enough from the World Series of Poker that you're one of the few at this point who you're like, the 40 I might play in my lifetime or whatever, they're paid for.
Yeah, and you can't run enough mains to realize your full equity. 10,000 people, you need 30,000 mains. Maybe in the year 3,000 when they're freezing our brains, but not in 2024.
If you could think back to 2009, 2015, 2024, how has the game evolved? Not only from your perspective and your perception, because you've changed as well, but just if you could somehow kind of remove yourself and watch it and be like, man, the run in 2015 was like this, the run in 2024 was exponentially harder, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know, because there were so many more players.
I tell myself that if I knew what I knew in 2009 that I do now, I would have just crushed most of that field, especially deep, and the results would have been way better. But all of the stuff we know now, we didn't know back then. The way we played hands, the way we formed our strategies was trial and error, making that. We didn't have computing power. In 15, we started going down the computing power route, but like the people that were running it were the better players, the high rollers who were putting the time. But if you ever run a spot, I was hearing stories like, I'd run a spot, leave the computer alone for 3 days, and then come back and see, and hopefully I didn't mess up the inputs. And if you mess it up, now you got fix it, and then you gotta take another 3 days. And now we got pre-save stuff that people sell. We got, if you want to run something, you can still run it in about 60 seconds, 30 seconds if you wanted. The very basic ones, the more complex ones, I've heard take longer. I don't know how to run them, but when I have a spot, I ask somebody who's in the know, and then they're like, all right, it was kind of this. I'm like, okay. And they said, oh, if this is the situation, it's this, where we're more easily now, we're able to more prove how correct or wrong a play is in 2024 than we were definitely 2009, and a lot better than we used to do in 2015.
Right, where it used to be, I mean, I was playing in 2009 and 2015, and I'm playing now, where it used to just simply be, you would have a hand, and you would go to your friend, and you guys would discuss your line, and you guys would debate and talk about what other lines might make sense, or why that line wasn't ideal or optimal or whatever it could have been. And I guess you have no way of verifying it. It's just like, hey, I think this makes sense. And
there's a lot of survivor bias then, because if somebody did something and they're very successful, you automatically assumed back then that must be the way to do it. Because you didn't have any other way. You had no other way to prove otherwise, right or wrong. It's like, all right, he's been winning a lot. He's got to be doing something right.
Right.
Or now we look back on some of this and said, all right, so what he did was dumb, but at the time it was fine because nobody wanted to put chips in. I remember some of the really older school ones in some random conversations, like we're going back to like the 1980s, to where it wasn't okay to put in 13 blinds with ace jack offsuit against a cutoff open, where it was accepted in the masses.
I should take notes here. It's not okay. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
And then you think back then, it's like, why were all those like all the good players successful then that didn't find success later when all the online guys came? And it was because there was a saying somewhere, so it was no set, no bet. Like the game was that tight. Was the proper way to play Hold'em back then was considered to be really tight. And in reality, that wasn't the case. So you had the TJ Cloutiers of the world. You had, I wouldn't say Stu Unger, because Stu Unger had, was a computer all of himself from my understanding, even though I wasn't around then. We had a lot of super aggressive players having a lot of success because the field was under-defending their big. You're under-defending continuation bets.
Right,
they weren't 3-betting enough. So when they 3-bet, some of their 3-bet ranges, even with 20 bigs, were literally kings plus.
I can look back at my own commentary, and I can look back at poker analysts from 15 years ago, and you'd see just, a bet, a raise pre-flop, big blind defends, okay. And then it'd be, check, bet, fold, or check, bet, call. And the commentator, maybe sometimes myself, or be like, where's he calling when? And he'd have ace high or king high, and be like, and now it's just like, it's standard, like, the guy's bet, he's giving him, he's got 4.5 to 1. I mean,
and he's like, I got ace high double back doors and a gutter, like, yeah, clear appeal. Or now we're check raising them.
Right. It is funny how the game has evolved. You brought up earlier on, risk adverse, and I guess picking your spots. And there's a hand that's obviously, quite infamous this morning, the pocket queen.
Oh, yes.
And, well, I want you to talk us through that because, you hear all the time playing the main event, it's like, you got to kind of, you're tiptoeing through landmines. But how do you tiptoe through landmines? And I guess is folding the queens part of that?
I thought it was a good idea at the time. So there was a TV production break before the final table. So they did the redraw and 10, 15 minutes for TV. I went to the bathroom, came back. Dom was already there and said, okay, he said, here's the situation. Because I'm ICM aware, but I'm not very ICM studied. So Dom, we know Dom at 8 of 8 pretty well. Yeah. So he just said, okay, he said, a lot of it said, basically he told me what my stack value was. And he said, the value of doubling up isn't very much. I think at the time, it's a blur. It's like, he said, your stack's worth like 2.1 million or 2 million. He said, doubling's worth 2.6 and busting gets you to 800,000. So it's like, it has to be very tight. A lot of spots are kings.
That's just, it's like blows your mind. You're like, wait. If I double, then nope, my chip value, then I double. No, that's not how it works.
And so he said, a lot of your spots are kings plus. And he gave me 3 examples. And I kind of forget what they were. I said, okay, but this, when I had the queens, that specific spot didn't come up as a kings plus spot. But I started thinking through my head already when the open happened. If this is already a kings plus spot, I hadn't looked at my cards yet. And then I said, yeah, this is too similar to the other spots you told me. I said, okay, I guess this is a kings plus spot because it's under the gun open, and I'm 2 behind the open at a 10-handed table with the 6 big blind and like the 11 big blind stack behind me, and I have like 18 or 19 big blind, whatever it was at the time. I said, yeah, this might be the kings plus. So okay, and just put it in there because now that I'm old and like a grizzled veteran, I have the mentality now where the spot's the spot. Who cares what the hell is going around you? The spot plays itself. You make your decision based on the spot, based on what's going on.
What do you mean by that?
So, how everybody's playing, the ICM considerations. So whether it's the main event or you're playing $100 nightly.
This couldn't be less sexy or less. I mean,
it's boring.
Yeah, right. It is, but I'm talking to a world champion, somebody who just beat 10,000 people and won $10 million. So suddenly people are like, wait, so you're telling me I should fold queen sometimes? And by the way, I will tell you that I've commentated with Patrick Leonard, who I love, Pags, and he's been on 8-8 Ride. Thank you, Pads. And I remember commentating with him, and he was like, oh, and we're like 4-handed. And he was like, oh, the jacks are a fold here. And I'm looking at him like my mind just, I think my head actually started to explode a little bit. And I'm looking at him going, what do you mean they're a fold? He goes, oh, we had the raise, and you've got the raise, and you've got a call. And the guy behind you's got like no chips. And he's like, yeah, it's just a fold. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, and the pay jumps are this, right? And because of this, now it's this, and that's what I meant by I'm ICM aware. Like I've seen those spots. If I had to navigate it, I'd make it up to the best I could, but definitely not to the precision of like Dom could.
Right. Dom's a walking computer.
Yeah.
Months later now, you can look back at it, and I'm sure obviously you've done the math, and where Dom's told you what it was. The queen's fold correct or not correct?
Not correct.
Not correct.
It was
jacks.
I think it was jacks plus 10s, where Dom always breaks even. So in that spot, if it's a break-even spot, who cares? Muck the 10s, and Dom is one of those. Get the idea. Get the general idea. The edge scenarios he doesn't really care about because it's not winning or losing that much. It's more important to get the chunk of it.
I mean, you could argue listen, Phil Hellmuth has been under heat for what seems like his entire career. Yet, when it comes to tournament poker, he's a survivalist, right? That's how I would describe him, and it works.
And it just happens to naturally be for what he did for years was just naturally good, whether it was by happy accident or he thought it through. That's how you're supposed to play a lot of fountains, especially as a middling stack. So now that we know, that we know what we know, is that being a middling stack in a final table is pretty much hell. You are handcuffed.
Right, you're playing with cuffs on, and now listen, we always kind of point that out when we're doing covering final tables. We're like, worst place to be those middle stacks, and I always kind of point out, be like, that said, I would rather have 29 big blinds than 13 big blinds right now.
Yes.
Because while yes, I'm handcuffed with 29 big blinds, okay, I'm still better up than the guy with 13.
And the whole ICM, one of the ICM concepts is every hand that gets dealt makes you money.
That concept is crazy when you think about it. It's like every time you fold, you make money.
Every time, if you're a middling stack, and every time everybody folds, you make a little bit more money because the smaller stacks are closer to busting. Then the big stacks, if they're doing it right, leverage it however you're supposed to leverage it. And that's where the whole ICM stuff was just funny because in 15, we didn't really know about the ICM stuff. We might have, but...
And I'm sure in 15 and 09, there's no way you're even thinking about folding those queens.
Oh, no. And in 09, ICM only existed in the sit-and-go world.
09, you're like fist pumping, get it in. You're like, yeah, baby.
Nobody knew how to think about ICM with 3 tables. Any ICM work that was actually being done by the best players were 1-table scenarios. No one knew how to do 2. No one knew how to do 3.
I mean, the thought process behind like the money bubble, I still remember when I first started playing poker. I mean, this is a really long time ago, and I'm playing tournaments in LA, and I remember, shoving all in, like, button, and I had a ton of chips. And the guy in the big blind, like, open folded queens. And I was like, what is he doing? But there was that thought process of, like, we were right on the money bubble. We were on the actual money bubble, and, you know, it might have been $600, to be honest.
Right.
He was like, he won it. You know?
And, you know, people, well, it's the human loss aversion. The money bubble, they probably all the times will unintentionally play correctly because they just don't want to lose at that point. You've gotten so close, and, you know, the times the sunk cost too, you don't want to walk away with nothing. The amount of times I heard back then, you know, you just made that guy walk away with nothing because you did something dumb. I've gotten that one, like near a money bubble.
Right.
Yeah, how do you feel? He played for this many hours and now he walks away with zero. And it's like, okay. He's like, what are you supposed to say?
Right, that's what you signed up for. I mean, and when you look at the World Series of Poker main event, is there any tournament that where human loss aversion is probably bigger? Like, it's huge, and nobody wants to get eliminated. People want to bag on day one. If you're close to the money, you really want to cash.
As for the Masters, yeah, you know, I've seen when they used to have the $1 million one drop in the summer. Those bubbles I remember were brutal for everybody, but a few select people get to experience that. To where, yeah, the main event, we cashed how many people? 1,600 people, 1,560 or whatever it was this year.
Right.
So you have, you have a 4-digit amount of people every year now experiencing that. So you get to the final 2,000, you know, where else do you have a tournament with 2,000 people? That's a full field in a lot of tournaments.
Did you have chips going into the money bubble? Were you able to abuse?
I had chips, but I wasn't able to abuse because I had a big stack so I had 600,000 on the bubble, but there were 2 stacks on my left that had 1,900,000. So it was like, all right, just get to the money bubble, and then it's going to reset again. And then once it resets again, it'll just always just ramps up again. So it's just weird, the concept, like, all right, there's huge ICM pressure, and then once the money bubble hits, everything resets. And then you're just ramping up back again until the end of the tournament. Yeah, right. It absolutely is.
I had a guy on my left during the main event. I still remember during the money bubble, and he openly told me, he goes, if he had played at 45, 50 bigs, but he's like, if you raise, I'm gonna move all in if I have kings races, otherwise I'm folding. And I was like, okay.
I mean, he's 100% telling the truth is the crazy part.
Oh, he was absolutely. I did not doubt it when saw. I was like, okay, cool. You know,
I've seen. I don't remember what tournament. It wasn't the main, but I've seen the aces open fold, and not even putting a chip in the pot out of the big before.
Doesn't even want to look right. Doesn't want to have a chance to get knocked out.
Just wings it face up like he was proud of it, and you're thinking. I want to say it was a 1,500 way back in the like 08, 09, whatever, and you're just like, huh? What just happened?
Right, in that one, yeah. Okay, you brought up computing, we brought up Dom. I want to talk about, I guess the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've addressed this before, but I want to kind of just touch it. Now that you've had, several months to kind of chew on it and think about it, I want to go back to, Dom and Joe on your rail at the final table with a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly were they doing, first of all, and take us through that.
So the funny part about all this is Joe has never run a solver in his life. Joe is not the solver side. He's a live read guy. He's an exploit guy. He's an exploit guy. Like his base strategy will be further from what the best like Triton guys who are studying solvers are ever doing. Like, he doesn't know how to use them. Like, but he's there because he knows my game. He knows how I react to stuff. He knows what makes me tick. We've known each other a long time. So he's like, he knows, when I'm panicking, he knows how to calm me down in that spot. And Dom, so a lot of the stuff that went on happened before. So on the off day, like, we spent hours and hours. We watched we watched some of the PokerGo coverage, and then he showed me some stuff, and all he did was drill common spots. So just said, let's see what we have to fix. So we're gonna get the big idea. And Joe told him is that don't overwhelm him. He's like there's only so much. Like if you overwhelm him, it's never gonna work. So Dom said, okay, so we get the general spots. And
so I know obviously you and Joe are very close. Was Dom a hired coach?
No, because
just
well, he had a piece of me.
He had a piece,
yeah.
Right.
So he just kind of took on the role in a way. Like he walked in the room about after dinner of day 6. I ran into him because he just said, oh yeah, at some point you buy a significant piece of a guy, and you're like, yeah, that's all right. If it happens, it happens. And all of a sudden it's happening, and you get to the point of, all right, at some point you're like, all right, I gotta go watch this.
Right.
And then Joe's there too, and they just.
Did you guys have a swap, you and Joe?
No.
Wow.
I had no swaps. I was one person.
So you had sold a little bit, but then you had 100% of yourself.
No, I sold a little bit. I had over 50%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during the final table, what was actually on the laptop? What were they looking at?
So there was a group chat.
Okay.
And people are watching the stream and saying, hey, this is going on. Hey, this is going. Hey, he probably should do this. Hey, this is probably the strategy. And he's giving his feedback.
Okay.
And Dom's coming back to me and said, okay, something's going on here. We're gonna adjust. Or your stack sizes have changed. We're gonna adjust. So you cannot reform a full strategy in the time you have.
No, but it's a good reminder.
Yes.
Sometimes in tournaments, you kind of forget. You're like, the blinds went up and you lost a couple of chips and you don't even realize. You're like, okay, now you don't have 64 big blinds, you have 48 big blinds, and that guy's got more chips than you, and he didn't have them before.
And a lot of the work we did prior was short stack play, because we knew the expectation was I was to finish 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th a lot.
Right.
And never get traction.
That's the crazy reminder, is that yes, you came into the final table in 7th place. I'm assuming, there was never a thought of, hey, how do we get first? It must have been like, how do we get in the top 5 somehow?
And that was Dom's reminder right before we started. He goes, just play, because you're going to die in 9th, 8th, 7th a lot, and it is what it is. You can't really do much. Just go. We're playing. You got to do what you got to do, and give yourself a chance. And so a lot of the stuff was shallow stack stuff. A lot of the reminders started coming in when I had a lot of chips, because we didn't really cover a lot of that. So it was like, hey, we can do this, we can do this.
Right.
In the small blind, big blind, in the small blind, big blind now, because they're short, you can do a lot more. And he gave me examples of stuff to do. And then I took those examples and just tried to mold around the base strategy, because I have a base strategy when I play, and it's day 2 of a tournament. So Joe knows how my brain operates.
Right.
So a lot of it's molded around, okay, around your normal chip EV base strategy, you do more of this, or you do less of this, or you do more of this on this end and do less of this on this end, or
just
whatever.
To be clear, there was no real-time assistance. There was no RTI.
No, because there's not enough time. Because knowing, like, I was in a cash game, stable in a cash game group before this, and when we were in a group running a spot, I've seen how long it takes to run. Because you gotta get the inputs right.
Do you understand why the appearance of the laptop on the side would look?
Oh yes, because it's like AI. If you don't know the technology, and I don't know a lot of it, you're the most fearful of it,
right?
Because you think the possibilities are endless. And really, when I've seen, like, in these cash game groups running a spot, you gotta get the inputs and you gotta get it right, then you gotta tweak it, and then you gotta run it. To get a good result does not take 30 seconds. It takes time, so you can't possibly do a live solve at an FT. Maybe years from now, we could with AI.
I hope not.
But we can't. We've let AI out of the bag. It's going to run where it's going to run now. Unfortunately, I'm fearful of it too. The whole, like, computer chips in our brains. The whole.
I wouldn't mind a computer chip in my brain. That would make me a lot smarter. I need it. You don't need it. You're fine. But me, I could use a computer chip in my brain.
So you just can't. So there's feedback going back and forth. There's space. There's conversations going back and forth. What should happen, and then I'm just not a part of the conversation, and Dom's just giving me what we think the best.
And I assume at this point, Joe's
Practice
just
it.
going, hey,
Yeah,
don't give him too much. Don't flood him. Give him enough that he can handle.
And he's watching the live stream. He's a live tell guy. What you ever get pick up on a little cell phone? And
No, of course. Hey,
Yeah,
I mean, listen, Joe is arguably one of the best ever at those big MTT tournaments. He's just he's phenomenal at it.
And Joe said,
Why not have that guy in your corner?
And Joe told Don, he's like, I don't know how to do this. I said, I'm going to let you worry about this. He said, I'm going to stay to the side a little bit, but I know, So Joe was kind of like a secondary, and Dom was pretty much the primary driver of everything. And Joe was just there, like telling Dom, like, hey, I think, he's reacting this way, and then Dom would adjust. So that's why, like, even the heads up strategy was amazingly simplified because when they're bringing the money out, Dom asked me, goes, how much heads up have you played? Not very much. How much big blind ante heads up have you played? I go, never. And I actually think I lied to him. I think it was once, but I just kind of made it up too. So I said, okay. So
what was like? Did he give you one piece of advice that was like, do this then?
Yeah, it was open every button. He said there are limps. I'm not going to worry about that. If you open the limps, it's a small mistake. And he said we can't talk to each other. We're not going to have time to talk to each other until the next break. Goes, if you find an adjustment that you need to make, feel free to make it, and you're on your own. Go little tadpole.
And if you get go little tadpole, and if you get bottom two pair versus top pair, and you can get them to put all the trips in,
just cooler it, and that. And that was more of me making adjustments on the fly too, to where if he liked his hand, that's the impression I got. All right, he likes his hand. Let's go.
Right.
So that was more of me making it up. And
you don't. Yeah, I mean that particular hand. If you guys have to see it, it's the one that won.
And like the Jack Deuce offsuit hand where the front door flush came and the board one line, that was me making it up too.
If you're not in this position, but let's say you were in this position, or somebody asked you about laptops on the rail, and I remember Alan Keating talking about this, and perception is reality, and the whole argument of like, is this good for the game? What do you do? If you were a recreational player and you saw that, would you want to play, or would you just be like, what am I doing? Are there any adjustments that you would make going forward? Like if the World Series of Poker or any of the big tournament series came up to you and said, hey, we're asking champions, we want to know, was there something you would do? Well, especially considering I know fairness is a big deal to you since you are a high school football ref.
Yes.
So fairness is a big deal. So
basically what I tell them is decide the set of rules you want to play with. Because I remember in 2007 when I was first playing online, it was the Wild West. People were sharing accounts, people were selling accounts. It was perfectly acceptable. Then we decided down the line that was not. Now it's clear, that's not for obvious reasons. So we got to decide pretty much as operators and rules makers, how do we want to do it?
Is it on the players at all to not tiptoe the line as much as they have to be? Is it on the players to be ethical, even if it means, hey, yeah, I know what I'm doing is within the rules, but maybe this isn't ethical? And I'm not suggesting what you did was. I'm just curious.
But if that goes into the whole, if you're not taking the edge, somebody else also is, and now you're lesser for it. And the bigger the spot, so let's say the World Series of Poker Main Event, it's a once in a lifetime spot for everybody, unless you're Mark Newhouse, Joe Cata.
I know Mark Newhouse. He's never been past the night, so who cares?
Yeah. Ben Lamb, I think, also did final table twice, or did he final table once, or did he just have two deep runs? Regardless,
it's Ben Lamb. He'll do it again. He'll probably be there next year.
Regardless, like for most people, it's a one-off spot. You have that chance to change your lifestyle, you change your life situation. I can't expect the whole field to not take small edges wherever they can, wherever they find it. So it's up. So I think in an ideal world, that's how we all like.
I mean, is it the old adage like in sports where if you're not cheating, you're not trying? I'm not suggesting cheating, but it's like, you know,
pretty much if you're not pushing envelopes, you're not, you know, how's football evolved now? Because everybody pushed envelopes. That's why he says we have the 4th down fumble rules now, so that you can't holy roller the ball down the field anywhere for a touchdown.
Well, you got guys like Bill Belichick who are going to go, okay, how can I push this?
Yeah, we can't. You know, we had the Kenny Pickett college fake slide rule. You know, we closed that one, and you know that we had John Harbaugh intentionally holding 8 guys on the field to run out the clock and take an intentional safety up 6 or up 7 or whatever it was. You know, so you know, if somebody thinks it's something, and then they close it. You decide that's blatantly unfair to everybody else. So what I say is we're playing under the same set of rules, and it's up to everybody else to figure out how to work within the set of rules and do what they need to do to capture the most equity they can. And if we feel like something is over the line, then we'll close it later.
Do you feel like, because there were people that I think, and I think this was terrible, by the way, there were people that kind of, you know, poured cold water over your win. And I think the conversation after you won, and, you know, you won the Super Bowl of our game, right? The biggest event, it should be the biggest day. And some people looked at that and the little earpiece that fell out and all that bullshit. And it was like, but were you a little mad? Were you a little mad? Like, hey, can I enjoy this for a minute? Or did you not care?
Well, I didn't really because I had enough people to enjoy it with. Yeah, what I did was, for a while, I would look at the comments as nighttime reading, just for a laugh, because it now and then I just
took a lot of heat.
Dom embraced it. He went head straight on into it.
I listen. I love Dom, and I was trying to be like, Dom, just sit this one out, man. Just sit this one out.
I wasn't gonna go in there, but then then I took a step back and said, you know what? This is what professional athletes kind of go through too. They're getting tweeted at, they're getting comments thrown out at every social media site, and they're dealing with that on a daily basis. I only had to deal with it for this. I can't imagine doing something, have to deal with it for like 2-3 months on line and doing something else, and everyone's just piling on.
Well, you had a beautiful bracelet and $10 million.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier.
Hey, you seem like a fairly responsible person, so I imagine you didn't go crazy, but I mean, you win $10 million, and was there what was the first big buy?
A 10-pound box of jelly beans. I went to the Jelly Belly website. I bought a 10-pound box of all lemon. They have bulk boxes, all one flavor, all lemon. They have all one flavor. Bought that, and then
how much is that?
About $120. Free shipping. Yeah.
You had $2 million in earnings before that. This is something you could have purchased before.
Yeah, and I said, you know what? I deserve a sugar rush. I deserve some sugar. And then my driver was about 5-6 years old, so I got a new set. I was going to replace my driver anyways after the summer because it was about time.
By the way, in my head, I'm going, your driver? Oh, you have a
golf clubs. Yeah, so golf clubs. So it's like the head was probably, because they make them so thin nowadays. There's a lifespan of the club head now. So it's time for a new driver. I said, while we're at it, I might just replace the whole set because the set was about 7-8 years old. Might as well get something nice and new. The only thing I didn't replace my putter. My putter has been in my bag for 23 years now.
Hey, men and their putters.
Yes.
Okay, and maybe it's a woman thing too. I don't want to be sexist, but I mean, I don't know. But I know, like, my dad's the same way. I think my dad has the same putter he had when my dad's 80 years old. Same putter he's had for 40 years.
Well, once you find something that works,
it doesn't work for him. He's the worst putter I've ever seen.
Oh, then that's a him issue. So once you find something that works, putter technology doesn't really advance. They got, it's advanced, but
maybe it should. That's my new. You know what? That's my.
And every time it does, the USGA closes loopholes. Which back to the loophole thing.
Right. Let's go back to that whole thing.
Yeah, the whole loophole thing. So we can't anchor putters anymore because it looks bad.
Okay, so you didn't go out and buy a Bentley?
No. Just like what I told people, like after taxes, like I might be rich, but I'm not Ferrari rich. No, I can't go out and do that.
Right?
Yeah, I can't drop whatever. Like the World Poker Tour now is giving away that McLaren. I can't drop $260,000 on a bare bones McLaren.
I mean, you could. It just wouldn't.
Yeah, it just went like.
Ali Najad does it. He doesn't win the main event, so.
Well, he gets regular gigs all the time, so he'll be okay.
Very clearly. I always joke around with him. He was he did an 8-8 ride too. I'm like, who's your agent? Because I need to switch. How's your life changed?
I don't have the time. It's weird. I had a while to decide, like, how do I want to go about it? And I said, I'm just going to see how my brain works with it. I don't think I could play small and mid-stakes cash anymore, which was what I was doing for hours on end before this. Playing mass tabling, online, whatever, drilling spots. It hits different when...
Do you miss that? Like the small mid stakes?
Just kind of, a little bit, but in a way, now I think about it, not really, because the reason why I was doing it was to make sure I can pay the bills. And it hits different when you don't have to do something to pay the bills. And is there, like, I know people that make one the main, they lose drive and stuff, and I'm trying to not do that, because I put too much time and effort into it to just walk. So I have to find another way to study. I have to find another way to go about my business.
Right.
Because now,
is it hard? I was gonna say, is it hard to motivate yourself now to kind of learn?
It is too, because now, like, I'm 100% on my own now. So, like, the support system I had before, running hands, studying this, studying that, it's got to come from me now. There's no threat of, like, trying to do something higher, because once you win the main, what else is there really, like, for most people? Like, that's the top of the mountain a lot for a lot of people. Like, what do you do after you're on the top of the mountain?
You come down the mountain.
Yeah, you come down. I don't know what to do, because I never planned for it, because it's not a realistic thing.
What's next?
WPT Championship.
No, what's next? Not next today. I mean, like, what's next for you? You've won the main event. You're not playing mid-low stakes anymore. What's next for you? Like, what's the next?
Probably just play a lot of tournaments when I want. I put the money away that I need to put away, and I can, I'm not going to play a lot of high rollers. I have some PGTs I'm going to play because, my point situation is what it is, where I need a third min cash. But, it's not going to be my scene, because I'm not that well studied. Squeeze out 10, 12, 13% is crazy for the amount of time I have to put in to go from, like, giving back 20% to everybody else to trying to gain 10. It's just, I'm in the point in life where don't really, do I want to put in, no, because does it really improve my life? It probably, going through that process, probably makes my lifestyle worse. And the whole point, I said, money doesn't buy happiness, but it gets you out of a lot of hardships.
Both, I think both are fair. Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time.
Anytime.
Well, look at this. Look at this service. We pick you up at the airport. We take you.
And perfect timing.
We take you to Palms Place. We're here. This is perfect.